stroke and you're in the Thames. Now, as a polymath and thinker and the first scientist, obviously he's operating way beyond the expectations or the understandings of any of the people around him, especially the Franciscans with whom he is sharing some kind of monastery. So as a result, he's also branded as a sorcerer and a wizard, and like most of the people we look at today, he spent quite a considerable amount of time in prison. His name has been associated with the original invention of the microscope, the pontoon bridge and the tank. That's 1300 AD, guys, the tank and the pontoon bridge. He's also said to have gained much learning from the devil and to possess a mirror that could enable him to get information from distant places. He was not dissimilar from Dr. Dee. He had an obsidian mirror that was said to be able to read the future in. His fellow confessors, despite the fact that his name has come down to us, Dr. Mirabilis means wonderful teacher, which is a very, very brilliant description of what this guy was. But despite that fact, his fellow Franciscans were so convinced that he was having truck with the deviant that on his death, his books were nailed to the shelves on which they were found and left to rot. That's what you get for crossing the church. Unfortunately, you really had to be a member of the church to do this work to start with, because you needed to be able to write. And if
when was this? In 1500s?
This was 1200s, the 12s and 1300s. Effectively in our dark ages, some of these guys were beavering away on their own. There were obviously a lot of people trying to stop them. One of the things that we do know about alchemists is that they used a lot of symbols in their work. They used the symbols partly to get whatever power can be got from the symbol itself, which we all understand, sympathetic magic, but also they used symbols to avoid what was happening under the hands of Nicholas II. You use symbols to transmit colourful and complicated ideas so that your other fellows could understand them, but the guys who wanted to torture you couldn't. So they used these symbols partly for the use of the symbol itself and partly to disguise what they were writing. One of the symbols is the Ouroboros, the symbol of the dragon eating its own tail, or it can be a serpent. Really, the dragon and the serpent, to all intents and purposes, are the same thing, and they are symbolic of divine power, if you like, of divine creative influence. The dragon's a symbol of the primal unmanifest, and the god Mercury, who's known by the Greeks as Hermes, who is said to have was one of the characters who brought alchemy to Earth. The circle is symbolic of the eternal cycle of nature, so you've got divine spirits and the eternal cycle of nature all in one really beautiful symbol. Most importantly, the Ouroboros recreates itself by eating its own body. So it's a symbol of nature, it's a symbol of matter transformed, and so it's the primary symbol of alchemy itself. We return a little bit to that later because some interesting stuff comes up about the Ouroboros. Another thing that's major to alchemy is, of course, the phoenix, the symbol of rebirth through fire. This particular one is a masculine phoenix. It's got the two masculine elements under its wings of fire and air, and somewhere there's, I think the feminine one's called